knock on the door, and a man in a suit stepped into the hospital room. A middle-aged woman, likely the mother, rose from a chair by the window-side bed and approached him. "I'm Henry from Toto News," he said, introducing himself. The mother took his offered business card and gestured toward the bed. "Please." A girl in pink pajamas, a dark brown cardigan draped over her shoulders, leaned back against the reclined mattress, her gaze fixed outside the window. Her right arm was wrapped in a white cast. The hospital room was a private one, tucked into a corner on the first floor. Outside the window, flowers and low shrubs were planted to block the view from the grounds beyond, revealing only a dull, early autumn sky past the fence. "Thank you for your time today," Henry said. The girl kept her eyes on the window. A faint hiss came from the humidifier, exhaling white vapor. "Kiara, it's the reporter," her mother prompted. Finally, the girl spoke. "Is that Cozonis japonica out there?" Her gaze lingered on a vining perennial tangled around the fence, dotted with clusters of green, orange, and pink flowers. "I'm sorry. I'm not too familiar with flowers," Henry admitted apologetically. The girl turned from the window. Long black hair reached her shoulders, large eyes sat above teardrop bags, and her full lips pouted slightly, giving her a faintly displeased air. She was undeniably a beautiful girl, with delicate, refined features. But her eyes, they seemed to see nothing, impenetrable, as if guarding her heart. Or perhaps the mental shock of the incident still lingered. Henry pulled a notebook, pen, and IC recorder from his bag and settled into a stool by the bed. "Thank you for taking the time today. I know this must be difficult, but could you tell me about the incident?" The girl remained silent. Feeling a slight awkwardness, Henry gripped his pen. This girl, the sole survivor of the incident that had shaken Japan, had captured the nation's attention, especially as a high school student. At the hospital where she was first admitted, reporters, photographers, and even YouTubers had tried to sneak in, causing trouble. To protect her privacy and allow her injuries to heal, she'd been transferred to this suburban hospital. Even the nameplate outside her room bore a false name. No media outlet had yet secured an exclusive interview. Henry was determined to make this opportunity count. "You were in car 8, right?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." "You were seated closer to car 7, weren't you?" "Yes." "Do you remember anything about when the perpetrator boarded the train?" At Seijo Academy, a man wearing a deep-brimmed hat and a white mask boarded through a nearby door. He was carrying a violin case-like bag over his shoulder and holding a cooler in his hand. Her tone was flat as she recounted her memory. "What did you think when you first saw him?" "I thought he might be going fishing. He was wearing a yellow outdoor jacket, but it was a weekday evening, so I remember thinking it was an odd time to go fishing." "I see," Henry said, jotting notes. "And could you tell me what it was like when the perpetrator started shooting?" He glanced up at her, cautious. There were rumors of severe PTSD, but her expression remained unchanged. "The first person shot was the man in a suit sitting next to me, but I didn't see the moment he fired. I was looking down at a book." "When did you realize there was gunfire?" "The sound, a loud bang, and suddenly blood splattered onto the book, open on my lap. The man next to me slumped against me." Here's what happened. As the express train passed Kome Station, the man pulled a shotgun from the gun case slung over his shoulder and began shooting passengers one by one. The weapon was a Remington M870 shotgun. Its lead pellets spread in a wide pattern at close range, making it impossible to dodge and causing numerous casualties. The perpetrator started shooting near the connection between Car 7 and Car 8, prompting passengers to flee in the opposite direction toward Car 9. Following them, the man moved from Car 8 to Car 9. The highest number of casualties occurred in Car 10, the last car where bodies were said to have piled up. It was a weekday evening, and many of the victims were students. Of the 3 cars affected by the incident, the only passenger to survive was this girl, Kiara Nita, originally in Car 8. "You were injured too, weren't you?" Henry asked, glancing at the white cast on her right arm. "Yes. After the gunshot, my right arm felt incredibly hot, and I noticed it was bleeding. According to police reports, she'd been shot in the elbow and upper arm and had undergone surgery to remove the bullets. Do you remember anything else about the perpetrator?" Our eyes met. As he was heading toward Car 9 to chase the passengers, he passed right by me. That's when... Do you remember his face? She shook her head. He was wearing a deep-brimmed hat and a large mask. I only saw his eyes, and just for a moment. What did he do when he noticed you? He just walked past. My right arm was bleeding, and I was covered in the blood of the man next to me. He probably thought I was too badly injured to survive. I see. As the perpetrator moved from Car 8 to Car 10, he shot each person methodically, as if ensuring no one survived. Did you ever think of escaping to Car 7 after he left? There had been time between the perpetrator moving to Car 10 and returning to Car 8. Why hadn't she fled to the next car? I don't really know. She was injured, likely in shock. It was understandable. No ordinary high school girl could process a massacre unfolding before her eyes. Were there any other survivors in Car 8? I heard groans, but no one was standing or moving. The perpetrator, after reaching Car 10, returned to the earlier cars, shooting survivors to ensure their deaths. Many victims were found with bullets fired into them post-mortem, a chilling testament to his brutality. What did the perpetrator do when he returned to Car 8? He took a plastic bottle from the cooler he'd brought, poured gasoline on the floor, and set it on fire. You saw that? Yes, the cooler was placed near me. In an instant, the train was engulfed in flames and smoke. Then I heard gunshots. Amid the burning car, the perpetrator sat in a seat, put the shotgun in his mouth, and pulled the trigger with his foot, blowing his head off and ending his life. An emergency stop button had been pressed by a passenger, halting the train on a bridge over the Tama River between Komai and Kawasaki. Station staff rushed to the scene, forced open a door, and managed to rescue the girl, who was lying on the floor. 36 people died instantly. 7 others, critically injured and evacuated, later succumbed in the hospital. The final casualty count reached 43. This was the outline of the Odakyu Line shooting that shocked Japan. Henry exhaled heavily and looked up from his notes. Why do you think you were the only one to survive? The perpetrator had gone so far as to shoot corpses intent on leaving no survivors. Yet he passed by this girl twice, once initially, and again at the end, and spared her. I don't know. Maybe because I don't have much presence. Henry gave her a puzzled look. When I was in kindergarten, I was left behind on a bus because no one noticed me. My friends often say I'm like a ghost or just air, like I'm there but not really. She spoke earnestly, not joking. Henry, keeping a straight face, scribbled ghost and air in his notebook. Is there anything else you remember? I'm not certain, but... Noticing her hesitation, Henry leaned forward. His reporter's instinct told him she was holding back something significant. Anything, no matter how small, is fine. Please tell me. There was someone else alive. Henry stopped writing and stared at her. Someone from another car? No, in car 8. His brow furrowed. There were no survivors in the 3 cars, and no passengers had escaped through the windows. The police had confirmed as much. I saw it. After the car was engulfed in flames, and I heard the gunshot, someone jumped from the window into the river. Was it a passenger? No one had come forward as a survivor after the incident. I think it was the perpetrator. The perpetrator? But the perpetrator's charred body was found in car 8. He was a man in his 30s, embroiled in a divorce dispute, who had killed his wife and children at home with his licensed shotgun before committing the attack in a fit of despair. I think he staged a passenger as his body and escaped. Henry was bewildered. If true, this would be a massive scoop, but all evidence pointed to the man as the perpetrator. DNA from his home matched the charred body, and the shotgun found at the scene was registered to him. If what you're saying is true, that would mean there was another survivor besides you. Yes. Did you tell the police? I did, but they said no such person was caught on surveillance cameras. Henry's pen froze. If true, it was a bombshell, but the case had been closed with the suspect's death. Writing a sensational story about a second survivor without evidence could ruin his career. The girl's vacant eyes, still unfocused, gave nothing away. The scene shifted to an apartment room. A man lay face down on the hardwood floor, a pool of dark blood spreading around him. Forensic officers and detectives, their shoes wrapped in plastic bags, moved busily about. The sound of camera shutters echoed through the room. "Who's the victim?" asked a detective in his 40s. A younger detective flipped open his notebook. A reporter from Toto News, Henry Sterling, age 34. He didn't show up for work, so a colleague came to check on him. With the building manager's help, they entered and found him dead. A reporter, huh? That explains it, the older detective said, glancing back. A large corkboard hung on the wall, covered with countless photos and newspaper clippings, all related to the Odakyu line shooting. Wasn't that case handled by your old precinct? Yes, Komai Station, the younger detective replied. Speaking of which, Stanley, I heard something odd about that case. Odd? You know how there was one survivor? The miracle high school girl, right? She was a big story. It's about her. The younger detective hesitated, then began. Thank you for today, Henry said, standing and bowing. He thanked the mother as well. The nearly hour-long interview was finally over. He hadn't pressed further on the other survivor. there was no way to verify it. The girl, as if she'd lost interest in the reporter, gazed out the window again, just as she had at the start. Her eyes fixed on the vining perennial, tangled around the fence, its green, orange, and pink flowers attracting bees sipping nectar. She must really love flowers, Henry thought. What an unusual girl. I'll take my leave, he said with a bow, turning to exit. Do you like orange? The girl's voice stopped him. Chiara Nita was staring at him. It's my favorite cologne. It was a high-end imported perfume he wore daily, made with natural blood orange extract. He loved its fresh, fruit-like scent. Chiara turned back to the window. Her mother gave an apologetic nod, and Henry left the room with a wry smile. Walking down the hospital corridor, he passed a nurse, glanced around, and slipped into a nearby linen room. From his bag, he pulled out rubber gloves, slipped them on, and drew a double-edged diver's knife, gripping it tightly. If she hadn't remembered, I could have let her live. She hadn't shown any sign of recognition during the interview. She likely hadn't realized he was the perpetrator. But she remembered the cologne. Since childhood, he'd enjoyed killing and dissecting animals. He didn't know why. He just did. When he needed to curb his urges, he'd carve up oranges instead of cats or birds. The scent of oranges calmed him, a lingering habit. As an adult with time and money, his desire to kill humans grew uncontrollable. Runaways, prostitutes, the homeless, people who wouldn't be missed. He'd killed them carefully. But 3 years ago, a small mistake nearly got him caught, and he'd stopped killing. That was the mistake. His suppressed urges had erupted into a massacre. As he shot people with the shotgun, he'd climaxed in his pants. He'd intended to kill every passenger, leaving no witnesses. He thought no one in the car was alive. But that girl, Chiara Nita. It was unlike him to miss her. He clearly remembered shooting the businessman, but the girl next to him? He couldn't recall her at all. A ghost. She'd mockingly called herself Air, blending into the scenery with an eerie lack of presence. No matter. The miracle girl will die this time. He tucked the knife back into his bag and left the linen room. Checking that the corridor was empty, he headed back to Chiara's room. The odd thing was about the surviving girl, the older detective asked. The younger detective nodded. Do you remember the landslide in Niigata 15 or 16 years ago? An entire village was buried. Vaguely, Stanley replied. Illegal land filling in the mountains caused the ground to collapse during heavy rain, killing the villagers below. But one baby survived. A 5-month-old was found in the rubble, 87 hours after the search began, past the 72-hour survival window. What about her? The miracle girl from the Odakyu case? She's that baby. Huh. So she survived 2 major incidents? That's some luck. There's more, the younger detective said grimly. Her parents died in the landslide, so she was adopted by her aunt and uncle in Tokyo. Do you remember the attack at the kindergarten bus stop in Setagaya about 10 years ago? A meth addict killed a bunch of kids. Yeah, awful case. A lot of kids died. Stanley's face shifted as he sensed where this was going. No way. She was there too. 6 kids died, but she survived. There's more. When she was in middle school, her class bus fell off a cliff during a ski trip. The driver was sleep-deprived from overwork. Every student died. Except her? The younger detective nodded. She escaped with just scratches. A heavy silence filled the room. If true, it was too much to dismiss as coincidence. Do you know about Pandora? Pandora? In Greek mythology, Pandora was a goddess. Zeus, angry that Prometheus gave humans fire, sent her to Earth to bring calamity. The gods gave her a box she was forbidden to open and sent her to the human world. But one day, curiosity got the better of her, and she opened it, releasing plagues, sorrow, poverty, crime, all the world's evils. So, you're saying she's not a miracle girl? Exactly. She's the opposite, a harbinger of disaster. Everyone around her meets calamity, misfortune, death. In every incident, some people were rescued in critical condition, but they all died eventually. No exceptions. Everyone around her is fated to die. Noticing Stanley's grim expression, the younger detective added, "It's probably just an urban legend." Pandora, huh? I wouldn't want to cross paths with a girl like that, Stanley muttered. The man slid the door open without knocking. Slipping into the room, he pulled on a black balaclava and drew the knife from his bag. The mother was gone. A yellow curtain surrounded the bed. Moving silently, he approached and pulled back the curtain. She's not here. The bed was empty. He clicked his tongue. Maybe she was at a test. Hiding and waiting wasn't an option. There was barely any space except under the bed. I'll come back. But the reporter's body would likely be found soon. It wouldn't be long before the mother and daughter were tipped off about the fake journalist. I need to finish this today. A lukewarm breeze brushed his face. The window by the bed was open. Outside, he saw the perennial vines the girl had been staring at. A buzzing sound approached, and a large wasp flew in. Its chattering mandibles grated as it circled his head. He swatted at it, with the hand holding the knife, but the wasp attacked, stinging his nape with a sharp pain. Gah! The knife slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. As if summoned, more hornets swarmed into the room, targeting his head. Through the balaclava, countless stingers pierced him. He tore off the mask, but the hornets swarmed his face. His hands, raised to shield himself, were quickly covered in the insects. Black and yellow bugs clustered over his head and shoulders, making his head look like a grotesque, pock-marked fruit. His knees buckled, and he collapsed forward, his forehead hitting the floor. The hornets scattered as he fell. Anaphylactic shock set in, his blood pressure plummeting, his vision blurring. His blue lips trembled, gasping raggedly. Someone entered the room. Through his hazy vision, he saw slippers and pajama pants. It was the girl, Chiara Nita. She looked down at him, her eyes as emotionless as when they'd first met, devoid of pity or sympathy. You're going to die too, aren't you? Her whisper never reached him. His eyelids and lips swelled, his face erupted in red hives, and his wide-open eyes saw nothing. His outstretched arm fell limply to the floor, his pupils dilating rapidly. And so, every person connected to the Odaku line shooting died, except for one girl. Yellow hornet, also known as the hairy hornet. This insect belongs to the Vespidae family, Vespinae subfamily, and Vespa genus. It is highly aggressive compared to other hornets, with its population peaking from September to October. Hornets have an acute sense of smell, and yellow hornets are particularly drawn to the scent of oranges. Oranges contain 2-pentanol, a chemical similar to their alarm pheromone, which attracts them. Causonis japonica, a vining plant from the Vitaceae family, is known for attracting yellow and long-legged hornets, which feed on its nectar.